I'll let you know once it's live, Chair.
Thank you.
The stream is now live.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Cabinet. This will be live streamed this evening due to COVID restrictions. And can I ask all members to keep their microphones muted until called to speak, because that will help with our YouTube stream when it is obviously sound interference can be annoying. Can I ask that mobile phones are also turned off or switched to silence, because they do have a habit of going off, don't they, when we are speaking. I think that is the procedures of our remote meeting. Item 2, apologies for absence, and everyone, all of Cabinet is present. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any in addition to those printed on the agenda? I'm not seeing any, so I'll take that. If there are any during the meeting, please do advise and they will be recorded appropriately. Item 4, the minutes of the previous meeting. Is someone happy to move they are an accurate record, or to point to any alterations required?
Move that.
Okay, I'm happy to second that. Is there any controversy with the minutes of the meeting? Okay, they are then approved. Item 5, public consultation. I've been informed that we have speakers on items 6, 7, 8, Councillor Kondaka, and on both items at item 9, Councillor Wilson. Are there any further public speakers we haven't been informed of? So in that case, I'll work through the agenda as printed, since we have speakers on most items. So item 6 is the draft general fund budget. The report presents Cabinet with the draft general fund budget position for 2021-2022, along with a number of savings proposals for approval. The report also sets out a very high-level update of the medium-term financial plan, although this will need to be updated once the spending review and settlement are announced this year. Section 3 of the report sets out the background to the budget setting process and the uncertainty the Council faces from both the current COVID-19 situation and the upcoming spending review. Section 4 presents the draft budget position as it currently stands, based on a number of assumptions about spend pressures, inflation and council tax. The potential ongoing impact of COVID-19 has been included, although they will need to be kept under review as the budget setting process progresses. The table at 4.16 shows a deficit of £860,000 based on these assumptions. The report then puts forward a number of savings proposals for approval, and these are shown at the table at section 4.19. Some of these may have employee implications, and the Council's management of change process will be used as required. If these savings are accepted, there will be a gap remaining of £667,000, and further savings or increased income will need to be identified to ensure a balanced and sustainable budget can be achieved. Section 5 gives an update on the Council's earmarks reserves position, and the Council's unallocated balances do remain very low. A further review of reserves will be undertaken prior to the final budget report being approved by Cabinet and Council in February. The recommendations are at section 2. Can I bring in Councillor Kondaka?
Thank you very much, Chair. Unfortunately, we're in a very dreadful position due to COVID, not helped by the government being late in giving us a settlement, which means there's great uncertainty. So I wouldn't want to be overcritical of the council, because obviously it didn't put itself in this place. But there are a few things I keep wanting to push on in terms of greener and more sustainable finances. The the first I'll mention is the mayor's car and that aspect, which I think is no longer tenable in this day and age. The second is to look at waste and recycling. Clearly, we haven't gone ahead with a unitary transformation, but I think one area where there is serious savings to be made amongst the 5 councils as districts and the county is greater working together on waste and a transformation of waste. Waste is one of our really big cost centres, and there is so much more we need to do on waste education, because we bear the cost of how much waste people produce, and unfortunately with 5 different borough councils we don't have that unified education and transformation, the circular economy and all that stuff you can get if you have a waste partnership that is actually strong enough that we all have the same waste systems, etc. So I think waste is a big area we should progress on, and hopefully have a merged waste system for Warwickshire. That would save us money and let us do important things like the Nuneaton regeneration. Just so much to do. On housing, we really need some clarity on the new homes bonus. We probably built about 500 houses in the last year, but we also had about 70 more empty houses than the year before. We've got about 1,700 empty. And I keep mentioning also we should look at getting more empty homes back into use, because that is more council tax coming in and eases our pressures on housing. We've got 1,700 empty houses now in the borough. The vast majority are only empty for a number of months, but some are empty for many years. And I think empty homes is a massive resource that is a win-win-win for everyone. So I do ask the Cabinet to keep looking at ways of getting more empties into use. I know you're doing some stuff, but it is just a no-brainer to actually get them back into use. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Condicourt. Are there any points of clarification Cabinet wish to make? No, in that case, can I thank you, Councillor Condicourt, for your comments? Any member? I'd just like to say, I think one of the points that Councillor Condicourt made about empty properties, of course, we want to do everything we possibly can to decrease the number of empty properties. And that in part is why one of the identified savings is about empty property premium for council tax, to try and encourage swifter turnover of properties. I do now have firstly Councillor Shepherd and then Councillor Beaumont. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for no camera this evening. It is regrettable to have to include civic bonfires, but I'm sure we will look at all the external funding opportunities we can to hope to continue them.
Thank you. And Councillor Beaumont? Oh, Councillor Beaumont's hand has gone back down. Councillor Watkins?
Can you hear me now?
I can, Chris, now, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I find it really odd that actually that Councillor Condicourt keeps bringing up about the empty homes. Yes, we've got empty homes, but they're owned by people. We, as a council, we cannot, so I'll just repeat it because I do say it quite a lot to Councillor Condicourt, that we cannot make owners take up the offer that we've got on the table. The offer that we've got is there for them to come forward to the council and ask for our help. That is what we are doing. But if they don't want to come, we cannot force them. So although he keeps going on and on about the same thing, this answer will be the same. The offer is there. The owners need to approach the council. We have done all we can. That's all I needed to say, Chair.
Thank you. Obviously, we are in very difficult times, like councils up and down the country, as a result of what has been an horrendous global pandemic and some of the financial uncertainties in that regard. A lot of work is going on by our finance team to identify possible savings where they are possible. And I think we will continue that hard work throughout the year. And we do need more certainty, actually, I think Councillor Condicore made a valid point that some of the announcements of funding from central government have come a little bit later than many of us would have liked. We're very pleased to have received funding, of course we are, but certainty over things is really what we as a council at this stage need. Are there any further comments? I'm happy to move the recommendations as printed. Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is everyone in agreement? Unless I see any hands, I will take that we have approved that report. Thank you very much. We then move to item 7, and item 7 is the Treasury Management Report found at page 35, and I will introduce that. The SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management requires councils to provide a mid-year report to inform members of the Treasury activity and performance against approved indicators for the first half of the year. Section 4 of the report gives an update on the economic position, including the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and includes the latest interest rate forecast as provided by Link Group, our Treasury advisors. The Treasury and prudential indicators up to the mid-year position of 30th of September 2020 are shown throughout Section 6. Section 7 details our investment portfolio and performance for the first 6 months. Investment performance is ahead of the benchmark, but investment returns will be below budgeted amounts due to the emergency cut in interest rates to 0.1% at the start of the global pandemic. Section 9 summarises our borrowing position and shows our debt holdings and the maturity profile of that debt. A strategic decision to maintain an increased under borrowed position was made to ease financial pressures on the revenue accounts whilst investment returns were so low, but also due to the councils awaiting the results of the recent Public Works Loan Board consultation, which could potentially reverse the 1% increase in debt costs made by government last year. We can confirm that no Treasury or prudential limits have been breached and all maturing deposits have been repaid on time and in accordance with the agreed terms. As there are no requirements to update any limits or indicators at this time, this report is purely for noting, but will require submission to full council to comply with the regulations. The recommendations are at section 2. Do you have a speaker on this? Councillor Condarker.
Thank you. It's quite incredible that we've got a capital budget of 50.5 million now. That is a massive investment in our borough. A lot of it is most welcomed, but I do think we need to just have a look at our capital programme to see if all of it needs to be done in this next couple of years, given the fact that we have to pay somehow. Yeah, it's a mortgage. We don't just have capital money for free. So I do think we need to be more prudent on some of the stuff, but also we need to be ambitious on some of our projects, some of which carry considerable risk. So on 6.2, it would be useful to know, and obviously there's confidentiality issues as well, but how much things like the Abbey Street project are already included in this. And with interest rates incredibly low, it may actually be worth looking to see if we can actually set up social enterprise or some joint venture with the public or investors for some of these projects, because if the members of the public are getting 0.1% or negative interest rates, they may wish to invest at 2% possible return, 5% in some of our things. So I do think we need to de-risk some of our capital expenditure, but also some of it does have a big upside, and so councils, I think in the past, used to issue their own bonds even. So maybe we should do a bond issue ourselves for some of our more risky but potentially lucrative investment ideas, because we just can't carry massive amounts of debt, unfortunately. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there, but I say it's really, really important to look at our capital spending. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condicott. Are there any points of clarification of Councillor Condicott? In that case, can I thank you for your contribution, Councillor Condicott? Any member wish to come back on this? This report, as I say, is for noting at this stage. It will go to full council. In noting the report, I'd actually like to place on record my thanks to Craig Pugh and the team in finance who do so much to make sure that we don't breach any of these indicators that we have agreed as a council. So I'd ask Simone to extend our thanks to her team and Craig's team for the work they've done in this regard. Is anyone happy to second that? I think I heard Councillor Beaumont mime seconding it.
Yeah, I'll do it really this time.
Thank you very much. Is everyone happy with that? I'm not seeing any hands of dissent, so I'm going to take that is then duly noted as per the recommendation at section 2 of the report. Then coming on to item 8, the quarterly review of strategic performance. It was sent as a separate report, was marked to follow initially. Can I ask, is there anything in introducing the report either Simone or Brent would like to comment before I bring in public speakers?
Chair, just probably to draw your attention to the executive summary appendix A, which is page 8 of the PDF, which just summarises the positive aspects and areas for improvement. So I'd just draw that to your attention. Obviously, Brent, Phil and I can take any questions or queries you may have after the public speaking.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simone. Nothing at this stage from yourself, Brent?
No, thank you, Chair. I was just about to say the same thing as Simone.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to then move to Councillor Condicott.
Thank you, Chair. The most alarming thing in this report is on page 9 of the annex, where it talks about the £706,000 additional costs for the fire marshals at our independent living. We had a large amount in the last financial year, probably about £500,000, so we're well over £1 million now. And it seems something that the council's not talking enough about. I've asked for the fire marshal situation and the fixing the fire risks at the independent living to go to scrutiny. It'll be on the scrutiny panel tomorrow as item 13, so I don't know if it'll get timed out. But we seriously need to be getting a grip of making progress on these fire safety improvements. I understand it takes time. I understand COVID's got in the way, but we really need to have a list of what's the outstanding work and really get this cost centre down. Yeah, £700,000 is a lot of money in the housing revenue account. We talk too little about the housing revenue account. It's actually bigger than the general fund account, and I think it's an area that needs massive scrutiny. There are some other things on here. I mean, obviously there's the whole of the risk register. It's a pity you haven't got the risk register attached today, and there's just we've got that going to scrutiny tomorrow. But I think there's a lot of upcoming risks to this council, and I really think the cabinet does need to have a close look at the risk, particularly of the local economy, and lots of the things in the work programme. We're short of staff, economic development staff, key people we need to actually be pulling things back up and helping businesses get going again as we hopefully recover next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condicott. Any points of clarification? No. Can I thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Condicott? Any member wish to comment on the strategic performance report as attached? I know that Cabinet members individually will be talking to directors in regard to some of the areas for improvement, and also let's be very clear, we also want to celebrate those areas where we're doing very well indeed. Councillor Watkins. Councillor Watkins, you are muted.
I'm having a problem taking it off, Chair.
Sorry about that.
Is it off?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Right, okay. Yeah, no wonder we get Councillor Condacor coming in again, the frightener of the elderly and most vulnerable people in our borough. Absolutely shocking and disgusting behaviour by an elected member. It just goes to show that, you know, Councillor Condacor doesn't value anybody's life, and he would rather.
Councillor Watkins,
I am going to stick to it. I'm going to stick.
Sorry,
to
I think it's outrageous, Councillor Watkins accusing me of stuff, and I'd like him to treat me with more respect. All I asked was it went on the agenda.
Councillors, can I just say, I did interrupt Councillor Watkins to make the point that we really need to talk to the agenda.
I'm coming on to the HRA, what Councillor Condacor has just been going on about. It's clear that we are doing all the works that we can to protect our elderly, most vulnerable people. We will not be listing everything that we are doing. That is absolutely stupid to even think that we're going to be doing that. But what do you want to know next? When we're going to put a new window in somewhere or something? We are doing everything we can. Our contractors are doing everything they can. The professionals, Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service, are happy with what we are doing. And then we've got Councillor Condacor questioning everything that we're doing. Yes, we may have spent some money, but so what? We have had over 20 occasions to use the security. 20 occasions. And so that's what Councillor Condacor should be asking, things like that, not questioning everything that we try to do to protect our residents, our most vulnerable and elderly residents in our borough. We will do everything we can, and we'll continue to do everything we can, and we have done everything we can in the world's worst pandemic that we've seen, well, certainly that we've seen anyway. And our contractors have done a sterling job, and our officers have done a sterling job. And to be questioned like this constantly at every meeting is just disgusting, really. So that's it, Chair. That has stuck to the script and that has answered some questions. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying the works in regard to fire safety at independent living. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. The one thing I will agree on is on economic development. We have gone out to interview. There has been no takers. All we can do is keep trying and make the job at the end of the day more attractive for candidates to come in. But believe me, we share your concern that it is an important vacancy and it should be filled. But if people are not filling it, we've got to ask why. And we've got to deal with that. And I know for certain that officers are doing everything they possibly can to fill that vacancy. It is important.
Thank you. Any other things people wish to draw to our attention? I think it's always good to have listed actually both positive aspects as well as areas for improvement, and I'm really pleased that we have quite a comprehensive list here. And I'd ask each cabinet member please to discuss with the relevant heads of service and directors those areas for improvement so that we can monitor them in between reports to cabinet. With that, are we happy to accept the report as printed? We happy with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Sorry, I'm going between two different sets of paperwork here. Apologies. That brings us then on to item 9. These are recommendations from overview and scrutiny panels. Can I just check, Kelly, it probably is with yourself. Is anyone in attendance to present these?
No, Chair. I invited the Chair of the Internal OSP, but unfortunately he sends his apologies. He's not able to attend tonight.
OK, thank you very much indeed. In that case, the recommendations from overview and scrutiny are printed. I'm going to deal with 9A1 first, which is managing attendance of the council's workforce. The recommendation is actually it was resolved by the internal ONS that Cabinet need to liaise with senior management team to improve return to work compliance interviews and, if necessary, instigate performance management of team leaders or managers in making sure they are completed. Councillor Wilson, can I invite you to address the committee?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was actually myself who moved both recommendations, which are before you tonight, the internal scrutiny panel, which is why I wanted to speak on them. Unfortunately, the report that you have before you isn't what triggered the recommendation. Although it was considered at the internal scrutiny panel that night, what actually triggered it was the strategic performance report, which was considered later in that agenda. And I'm aware that members won't be able to see that, but if I quote what it actually says in there, it says short-term sickness return to work interview compliance is 82.54% against the 90 to 100% target range. I note from the quarterly performance report you've just considered on the previous item that this now has gone down to 75.32%. I'm speaking as someone who is a line manager, who is a manager who with responsibility for ensuring compliance in my own line of work. So I am fully aware of the pressures which exist. I face those same pressures myself as a manager. But it is vitally important that we get the compliance of return to work interviews up to as near 100% as possible. It is mainly, from my perspective, one of well-being and safeguarding members of the organisation. From the basic human standpoint of just saying to someone in their return to work interview, it's nice to see you again, are you all right, welcome back. That's always a nice starting point, but those conversations aren't being documented and being had. We don't know if there are reasonable adjustments which need to be put in place to enable someone to come forward or to stay in work or alter their patterns. Any referrals which we might need to make to the employee assistance programme or the equivalent that the council has here. These aren't documented, and it is even more important in these COVID times where people can fall sick with COVID, unfortunately, relatively at the drop of a hat. We're seeing that happening all across the borough and the country. And as an organisation which is aiming to keep as many services on the road as possible, it's vital to have those. I note that one of the comments in the most recent report you just considered says part of the problem is about managers being on leave, but it doesn't necessarily require that their direct line manager to do a return to work interview, so long as it is a manager that does it, that sees it through. Unfortunately, this isn't a COVID only issue. I have been challenging this for years, and there has been very little improvement. And I believe now it is time that Cabinet needs to act and set the tone and say, these are vitally important for our workforce, not only as a corporate entity, but as an individual level to the employee concerned. And we need to get tough where managers aren't performing as they should be. And it is a performance management issue where managers aren't conducting their return to work interviews. So I'm encouraging Cabinet tonight to go with the recommendation, set a direction of travel and saying this isn't an option anymore. This needs to be done because it's our employees which matter the most in terms of making sure they're well, fit and able to be back in work, and that we keep them well, fit and able in work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Any points of clarification? I'm not seeing any. In that case, can I thank you for your comments, Councillor Wilson? Any member of Cabinet wish to pass comment in this regard? Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just, obviously, action taken since the scrutiny panel last met. We are now recording and monitoring on total number of return to works that become due in a month and the number completed within the 3-day target as opposed to a percentage. which gives a more accurate picture along with the number of days taken to carry out return to works. I have concern about the comments about instigating performance management of team leaders or managers, as we do have systems in place, obviously, to monitor managers, etc. I also take on board Councillor Wilson's comments, but actually when we do return to work, we do ask the question about health adaptations as part of a good employer. So those questions are asked. I would never see it actually going, that element of it going to scrutiny, because I think we have got to be careful in terms of data protection, you know, because it would be very easy to identify a member of staff, and I would never want that to happen. So please be assured I am looking at it, and in terms of the comments made by scrutiny. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd, then you were happy that Cabinet, your recommendation would be Cabinet agree the ONS recommendation in this regard.
Yeah, taking on board that actually we do have systems in place in regard to performance management of team leaders or managers. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Can I take it then that Cabinet is happy to agree the recommendation to us? Not seeing any dissent from that, so that recommendation is then agreed with the comments that Councillor Shepherd added to it. That moves us then on to item 9. Well, it's 9A2, I presume, is museum performance, and at the same overview and scrutiny committee, it was resolved that it be recommended to the portfolio holder for arts and leisure to commission a COVID-19 history project through the museum to collate the living history during COVID-19 for Nuneaton and Bedworth. Councillor Wilson, you wish to make comment in this regard?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, it was me that moved this recommendation at OSP. And one of the things if I'm not got my head buried in a cabinet report or something else, one of the things I really enjoy doing is reading history, not that I get much time to do it nowadays. And the museum is a key focal point where we can retain this living history which we are living through at the moment. They have outreach projects that talk about the war, and as you'll quite often see in GCSE history and A-level papers, etc., you'll see diary entries or extracts from the ordinary man or woman on the street about what happened to them during those periods of time. They've got about the mining history of our community, as well as the George Eliot and Larry Grayson exhibits, obviously. This is a massive era of change for us at the moment, and many people's lives are being interrupted. And we have an opportunity here to capture in a proper programme, if they can put together a plan for a COVID History 19 project, to be able to relate to generations that come after us how we lived through COVID. And I think it's one of the most important things that the museum can do, which is capturing living history as it happens. And you never know, something that might happen in the future is that a GCSE or A-level paper in the future refers to COVID-19, and it could be one of our members of the public living now that ends up being a living witness to history in future generations. So I hope that Cabinet and Councillor Lloyd in particular will take this in the spirit it is intended, because at work I've been making notes as to what happens and what I'm told to do from day to day, and it's amazing when you look back how much has changed what you're told to do. Things change on a knife edge, and people will have collated that information as they go along, and some historians somewhere might find that useful, and we have a ready-made facility in the museum and art gallery to capture some of that. And I am really pleased that they have started collecting those documents where possible, but I think it will be great for this council to put it on a formal footing, give it the recognition it deserves, and actually go out there with something on our website or our Twitter feed or our Facebook page and say to people, we want your living history, and that we can keep that for posterity for the people that come after us, who will say to us, what was it like living through COVID-19? and we'll have some source material there to be able to do that. So I think this is an exciting opportunity, Chair and members of the Cabinet, to actually keep something for the future that generations will look back on and want to know what happened, because this is our generation's war. We've never been through something like this before. It's not soldiers on the front line, although many of them are or will be coming. It is our NHS, it is our key workers, it is the man on the street who goes about their ordinary business. And I think that's an exciting prospect for us, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any points of clarification of Councillor Wilson? Can I thank you for your comments? Any member of the Cabinet? Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I don't disagree with anything Councillor Wilson has said. Absolutely nothing. We are in extraordinary times that may not, I hope not, come along again in my children's lifetime. But you never know. And that is why on at least 2 occasions, I think, and certainly on 1 occasion that I can remember on the diaries, I put a press statement out with the museum asking residents, children of the borough to keep diaries and donate their diaries to the museum, so we can do exactly what Councillor Wilson is suggesting, you know, and use that to refer to in the future for people to have a look at in the future, maybe in 10, 20 years time, when it will be part of the history. It's present at the moment, it's actually happening. The best time to collect that information is now. There's no doubt in my mind. I know, you know, children in my own family keep a diary. I keep every single email, every single piece of information, and I stash it away on my computer. I know a lot of it's sensitive, and some of it is probably, you know, not for the public eye, but I keep everything, because you never know in the future when that type of information is going to be called upon. I certainly use it for reference. I think the council have spent more time on COVID-19 than any other thing that's affected this borough, and I'm sure all other authorities are doing the same. So yes, I will. We have put it on Twitter, we have put it on Facebook, we have done press releases, but you're quite right, you can't do too many, so let's do some more and, you know, get people sending their diaries and their thoughts in, because I think it's an important thing for the future. So I totally agree with him. And if you read the report, the actual, and as Councillor Wilson said, the museum has started doing that. But I'll up it and I'll take on board the suggestions of the overview and scrutiny.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Any further comment? We are living in unprecedented times, as has been said, in terms of COVID-19, and I'm pleased that the museum has started to do some work on this. And can I say it's really pleasing that scrutiny has come up with something that I think we can all agree is of benefit to our borough. So I'm really happy to agree the recommendation that has come forward from overview and scrutiny, and know that this by its very nature will be a work in progress, because, you know, we are living through this pandemic, and, you know, it will be fantastic to get living history throughout generations, because the effects of COVID may be very different on younger people to older people and so on. So to get that broad breadth of history from the residents of Nuneaton, I think and Bedworth, is something we will really want to see. Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, just a thought, Chair. One of the things that we haven't done that we could do is write or get a letter sent to all local schools. That way then you're buying in the very people whose children are going to be studying this in the future.
I think that's a wonderful suggestion, and in COVID times, perhaps sending an email rather than a hard paper copy of a letter sounds a sensible way, and I'm sure that's something that staff in the museum will be able to action over a period of time, and I would endorse that. Sounds an eminently practicable way forward on this. Are Cabinet happy then to approve the recommendation? Agree the recommendation, rather.
Agreed.
Agreed. I don't see any dissent from that. Item 10 is any other business. Should there have been any, we did have one public speaker, but we have no any other items. So that does bring us to the conclusion of our meeting. Can I thank everybody for attending? And can I thank officers who I know have put a lot of hard work, particularly into the budget and treasury management reports this evening, and indeed on the performance reports, for all the work they are doing in what are very, very busy times. Can I send a message to our IT person to cease the live streaming as the meeting is now concluded?